Welcome. Today we are covering some unsolved mysteries cases. If you want to see more of this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Enjoy. Candy and Roxy. Real names: Candy Gaither Horner and Roxy Gaither. Case: medical mystery. Location: Illinois. Date: October 1992. Case. Details: Candy and Roxy Gaither were the oldest of 6 children. They were the only girls, born just 18 months apart. By the time they were adults and young mothers, they formed a close bond. On February 27, 1979, Roxy was critically injured in a serious car accident. By the time Candy arrived, she had slipped into a coma. That night, Candy told her how much she loved her. Sadly, 2 days later, she passed away at age 22. A few years later, Candy was diagnosed with leukemia, but she soon went into remission. She remained so for several years until October 1992 when it returned. The only hope was a bone marrow transplant. At first, it appeared that was a success. However, her body then began to shut down. Her liver failed and she slipped into a coma. One night, however, she saw the ghost of Roxy. She told Candy that she must stay on Earth with their family because they needed her, and she was soon going to become a grandmother. Candy felt that Roxy had given her the strength to fight through the cancer. She soon awoke from her coma and the cancer went in remission. 2 weeks later, she was released from the hospital. 2 years later, Roxy's prediction became true and she became a grandmother. She is certain that Roxy came back from her grave to help save her life. Results: unsolved. Baron 52. Real names: Sergeant Peter Cressman, Dale Brandenburg, Joseph Majov, and Todd Melton. Case: lost crew. Date: February 5, 1973. Location: Laos. Case. Details: on January 27, 1973, the Paris Peace Accords had been formally ratified, which meant that there would be no more American involvement in the Vietnam War. However, as many soldiers were planning to return home to their families, others were still involved in missions. Sergeant Peter Cressman, an electronics expert who flew top-secret reconnaissance missions, wrote an angry letter to his congressman. He stated that he and others in his unit were in violation of the Paris Peace Accords, being forced to continue missions despite the official end of American involvement in the war. He also stated that he wanted to refuse orders but feared the consequences. On February 5, 1973, Peter, along with Dale Brandenburg, Joseph Majov, Todd Melton, George Spitz, Severo Prim, Robert Bernhard and Arthur Bollinger boarded a EC-47Q surveillance plane called Baron 52 to fly on a secret mission. The electronic experts, Peter, Joseph, Dale, and Todd, were situated in the back of the plane. The flight plan called for the plane to fly from Ubon Air Force Base in Thailand to Laos. The assignment was to monitor North Vietnamese tanks that were moving into Cambodia along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. At 11:05 p.m., the plane departed. 2.5 hours later, reports came in that the plane was receiving heavy ground fire. 5 minutes later, radio contact ceased. 2 days later, the wreckage of Baron 52 was located in the jungle deep inside Laos. At the time, the rescue team was only able to recover the remains of one of the pilots, Robert Bernhard. The team did notice 3 other bodies in the wreckage. 2 were sitting in the pilot and co-pilot seat. However, they could not be recovered at the time. The other men were considered missing in action. Joseph Majov's mother Mary recalled the day that she and her husband were informed of the crash. 2 military men informed them that he was missing in action, that his plane had been shot down, and that he and others may have bailed out before the crash. 18 days later, however, the family was informed that there was no chance that any of them survived because the plane went into a tailspin after being hit. Peter Cressman's mother Evelyn remembered the day that she was informed that their statuses were being changed from missing in action to killed in action. She accepted the ruling at first, believing they had positive proof. A few weeks later, they received Peter's belongings. The letter he had written to the congressman made them feel suspicious of the official ruling. Peter's parents learned that 4 parachutes were missing from the crash site, suggesting that 4 men escaped. They spent 5 years writing to military officials, seeking specific details about his case. The Air Force consistently responded, based on the condition of the wreckage and lack of distress call, there was not enough time for the men to bail out. The official report concluded that all members of Baron 52 were killed in the crash. In June 1978, the Cressmans received a phone call from an attorney with the National MIA organization. The man claimed that he had seen evidence that at least 4 people on Baron 52 survived and had been captured by North Vietnamese forces. He had learned of a report by investigative journalist Jack Anderson, which stated that U.S. Intelligence had intercepted some communication by Vietnamese forces shortly after the downing of Baron 52. Terrell Menarkin worked for the NSA in 1973, deciphering North Vietnamese messages. He found communication between North Vietnamese requesting transportation for captured American pilots. Due to the ceasefire, he believed that the only men that could have been captured were members of Baron 52. He believes that the men were captured after parachuting from the plane. After learning this information, the Majovs went to the Pentagon and looked at their son's file. In the file, there were copies of the radio intercepts, although they were mostly blacked out. They believed that they found enough information that showed that the government knew the 4 men had been captured. The Defense Intelligence Agency confirmed that the North Vietnamese communication existed, however, they stated that the nationality of the captured pilots was never specified. They did not believe the captured men were from Baron 52. In 1986, however, retired intelligence analyst Jerry Mooney testified before Congress, stating that Peter Cressman, Joseph Majov, Dale Brandenburg, and Todd Melton were prisoners of war. However, he claimed that they were being held in the Soviet Union, not Southeast Asia. Terrell Menarkin believed that this was possible, as prisoners with special knowledge were being taken from Vietnam to Moscow. However, there is no concrete evidence that POWs were being taken from Vietnam to the Soviet Union. The Majov family believes that the men's capture by the Vietnamese was covered up due to it occurring after the Paris Peace Accord. Mary Majov spoke with Dr. Roger Shields, the Assistant Secretary of Defense at the Paris peace talks. He claims that he was told to cross off Peter, Joseph, Dale, and Todd's names from a government list of American POWs captured in Vietnam. However, Shields recently claimed that he was not ordered to cross off the men's names. He does state that he believes that the men were captured and may still be alive. This evidence gives the families of the missing crew members hope that they are still alive and will one day be found. Results: unresolved. In November of 1992, a joint task force excavated the Baron 52 crash site and recovered the partial remains of 7 men. None of the remains could be positively identified, but the military and many of the family members of the missing men believe that they are their remains. In fact, Joseph Majov's dog tags were recovered and identified. For unknown reasons, some of the families refused to have DNA testing done on the remains. In December of 1995, the remains of the Baron 52 crew were finally laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. Robert A. Cressman, the older brother of Sergeant Peter Cressman, further adds that his brother was positively identified by Silhai based on dental X-rays. The U.S. Air Force provided those X-rays to his family, which showed a full set of upper and lower teeth. However, Peter had several teeth knocked out prior to entry into the USAF, which adds further doubt to the identification. To this day, the Cressmans and Majovs are still searching for answers. Martha Brailsford. Real name: Martha Laurel Conant Brailsford. Nicknames: no nicknames. Location: Salem, Massachusetts. Date: July 12, 1991. Case. Details: on July 12, 1991, a 37-year-old Salem, Massachusetts artist and interior designer named Martha Brailsford went sailing in Massachusetts Bay with her 46-year-old neighbor, Thomas Tom Maimone. They went aboard his sailboat Counterpoint and left the Salem Willows Pier that afternoon. The next morning, however, he returned alone. Around that same time, Martha's husband, Brian, reported her missing. Maimone initially denied taking Martha on his boat. However, on July 15, he changed his story after the proprietor of a boat shop said he saw Maimone and Martha getting on a boat together. Maimone said he took Martha to Winter Island Pier, where she got off the boat. Soon after, Maimone changed his story again, telling Detective Konrad Prosniewski that Martha was standing up in front of the boat when a rogue wave hit it. She lost her balance, hit her head, fell off the side, and disappeared into the water off Gloucester. He claimed that he searched for her all night but never found her. For 6 days, police boats crisscrossed the bay but found no sign of her. Police were suspicious of Maimone's story. They did not understand why he failed to radio authorities if Martha accidentally fell overboard. They also did not understand why he did not immediately contact police after he returned to shore. He claimed that he did not do so because he panicked. Almost on a whim, Salem Police Captain Paul Murphy called local psychic and witch Lori Cabot. She asked for the person's name, where they lived, and their date of birth. After she got that information, she went into a relaxed frame of mind known as an alpha state. According to her, while she is in this state, events from the past come to her in stark clarity. In Lori's vision, she saw Martha on a sailboat with a man. She said that Martha was quite naive. As she tried to enjoy the moment, he tried making advances on her. The two got into an argument, during which he became angry and basically turned into a beast. She asked him to take her back to shore. He continued to grab her and fight with her. He picked up an item on the boat and struck her in the back of the head with it. As she lay unconscious, he tied a small anchor to her ankle. Then, he weighted her down at the waist. Finally, he dumped her overboard. Lori told police that Martha's body was still anchored underwater near a small offshore island with a lighthouse in view. On July 18, within hours of Lori's vision, lobster fisherman Hooper Goodwin happened to check his traps in Massachusetts Bay off Marblehead. As one of the traps returned to the surface, he noticed an anchor attached to it. When he looked closer, he noticed some rope and fishing line dangling from it. The line dangled down the side of the trap and into the water. He then noticed what appeared to be a body attached to the line. Martha had been found. As Lori predicted, an anchor was tied to her foot and a lead diving belt encircled her waist. Her body was nude. An autopsy determined she had drowned. She also received several blunt trauma wounds to her head. The location of the body was also as Lori had foreseen, near a small offshore island with a lighthouse in view. Suspects, Tom Maimone. Results, solved. By the time the afternoon headlines broke regarding the discovery of Martha's body, Tom Maimone was on the run. An arrest warrant was issued for him. Once again, Captain Murphy called Lori. During this vision, she saw Maimone looking in a mirror and shaving off his mustache. She said he was frantic and unsure where to go next. He first thought of going south or west. However, he changed his mind and decided to go north to Canada. Lori offered to conjure up a spell to derail Maimone's plans. She used a straw doll and named it Tom Maimone. She wrapped it with white cord. She then went into Alpha and projected that he'd do something stupid to be caught. 3 days later, on July 20, a policeman in the town of Waite in northern Maine, near the Canadian border and well north of Salem, answered a call from vigilant locals. They had spotted an unfamiliar car outside a cabin that was supposed to be vacant. The officer discovered signs of forced entry. The intruder, found sleeping on the couch, was none other than Maimone. Just as Lori predicted, he had shaved off his mustache and was making a run for Canada. Instead, he ended up in a Massachusetts courtroom. Captain Murphy notes that it is hard to tell whether Lori's spell actually worked. However, he points out that Maimone did do some stupid things. He broke into a cabin in an area where people notice whether or not something is out of the ordinary, and he stayed there. After his arrest, Maimone said, "I killed a woman in Massachusetts." However, at his trial in 1993, he proclaimed his innocence. Maimone maintained his story that she was knocked overboard by a wave. He also claimed that he pulled her back on the boat and removed her clothes to prevent hypothermia. When he realized she was seriously injured, he panicked, tied the anchor and weight to her body, and dumped her back overboard. He claimed the blows to her head came from the lobsterman who pulled up her body. However, the coroner showed that those injuries occurred prior to her death. Prosecutors, however, claimed that Maimone had tricked Martha into coming on board. He reportedly told her that his wife had recently died of cancer. In fact, she was still alive. Martha told her sister that she felt badly for him. He had used the same ruse with other women in an attempt to get them to go sailing with him. 2 of them went sailing with him the week prior to Martha's death. One woman testified that once they were away from shore, he stripped down and sailed naked. Another testified he grabbed her in a sexual manner while on board. In the end, the jury did not believe Maimone. They found him guilty of second-degree murder in Martha's death. He was sentenced to life in prison. Detective Prosniewski says that he is willing to listen to Lori if she thinks she can help them. He, Captain Murphy, and other investigators believe she had a hand in bringing Maimone to justice. In 2006, Maimone became eligible for parole. However, it was denied. It was also denied during 2011 and 2016 parole hearings. During the hearings, he claimed that there was a conspiracy to frame him and that several people, including Lori, were involved. He continued to maintain that Martha's death was an accident. On October 18, 2017, he died in prison at the age of 72. Thanks for watching today's video. If you want to see more of this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. But until we see again, stay safe.